Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, with more and more companies adapting to a more hybrid work model, many business leaders are looking for the best way to create engaging and productive environment for employees, both in the office and at home. Now, today's guest built his company and product, Otter.ai, to develop solutions for that very challenge before it was even a thing. It really feels like he was ahead of his time here. And it was built on his belief that it is essential to adopt speech and natural language processing AI technologies that can develop an understanding of ever-changing physical and contextual environments and human-to-human interactions. So his name is Sam Liang from Otter.ai, which is a solution that I am a subscriber of already because it helps me repurpose content. Otter.ai has many different uses, but as a podcaster, I can upload an audio episode of a podcast like this, and Otter.ai will automatically transcribe it and make it searchable and enable me just to scan through that document and pull out content that I can then repurpose from the podcast episode and turn into a blog post, for example. But enough spoilers from me. Buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to California, where Sam is waiting to speak with us about all this and much more. Massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
My name is Sam. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Otter.ai. We built a meeting collaboration platform using deep learning artificial intelligence. The product has been used by millions of users who use Otter to take automatic meeting notes for meetings. Well, more than 150 million meetings, speeches, podcasts, classes. So happy that people find Otter useful.
They really do, and it's something that I use, and I've told you before we started recording today, to pull insights from podcast interviews. I've been at tech conferences with journalists where when there's a speech, somebody will record it and run it through Otter.ai to save them making notes throughout. They can just grab that information at a tech conference and get their stories written more quickly. But before we learn more about Otter.ai, what I'd love to find out more about is your origin story. I mean, where did your passion for technology come from? And ultimately, what put you on this path that you're on today?
I studied computer science in college. I got fascinated by it. It's magical that the computer system can do so many wonderful things. I finished my computer science degree in China. Then I came to the United States for graduate school. Went to Stanford and did my PhD in computer systems there. Met so many extremely intelligent people there. And many of them actually went out and created companies. And of course, many of them work at companies that Google, Cisco, HP. So I just got really passionate about technologies and amazed by how it can change people's lives. And also, I work with this amazing professor in Stanford. His name is David Sheraton. He's a professor in computer science department. He was my PhD advisor. He created several startups himself, and also in 1997 recognized the power of search in the future. I did some conversation with two young PhD students, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, and they told him about their PageRank idea, and he thought it was really cool, and just gave them a check of $100,000, and they started Google. So that was 1997. So Google, $1 trillion company now, but all those conversations and people I know just got me more passionate about technologies.
Love that story. And one of the reasons I invited you on the podcast today is right now here in 2021, more and more companies are learning how they can adapt to a hybrid work model, and business leaders are looking for the best ways to create an engaging and productive environment for employees, both in the office and at home. So what really strikes a chord with me is you actually built a company and a product with Otter.ai to develop solutions for this very challenge long before most businesses realise. So can you tell me how you went about that?
Yeah, we started Otter.ai 2016.
Yeah.
Of course, nobody anticipated this pandemic would happen. But we did believe that we need a product that help people meet better, help people capture meeting information, share meeting information, search for information discussed in meetings. So we built a product for that purpose. Again, with the most powerful deep learning artificial intelligence. So even before the pandemic, Otter has been growing steadily, has been adopted by a lot of people who use it for in-person meetings, for lectures, also for some of them use it for accessibility purposes because they have hard hearing. So we observe how people use it. We see that it helped a lot of people. So, we want to continue to grow. Then, at the beginning of 2020, the pandemic happened. Most meetings became online meetings using a platform like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, or WebEx. We decided to make Otter work better with this platform. That's why we released Otter Live Notes for Zoom, so that in Zoom you can do automatic live meeting notes. And recently in May, we released another feature called Otter Assistant that can join your Zoom meeting automatically. So it can work in two cases. Suppose in this call between us, if you look at the participant list, there is Mitro's Otter.ai. That's Mitro's Otter Assistant. It joined the call as a silent participant, but it's actually taking notes using Otter technology. So when you gave me some feedback, in order for me not to forget about it, I highlighted your feedback in the transcript in real time so that later I can review it. And also, I can easily share your feedback with our product manager. So we make Otter work really well for online meetings. For people who join the meeting from remote places, right now you are in Britain, I'm in Silicon Valley, California. We're all distributed, but Otter works seamlessly for this type of remote meeting. It definitely helps hybrid work. Of course, our office is partially open now. Every day we have about a dozen people in our office. So some of the meetings happen in person, some of the meetings happen online, and some meetings have people both in person in the office and some people working from home. So how do we support that seamlessly with one product? We designed Otter for that purpose. Because when you meet in person, Otter works very well either on your laptop or on your mobile devices like iPhone, iPad, Android phone. When somebody is on Zoom, Otter Assistant join the Zoom call. So it takes notes whether you are local or you're remote. Again, it's very important that the meeting notes is shared among all the meeting participants so everybody can read it and highlight it, add comments. Actually, in your Zoom chat box, there is a URL. If you look at your Zoom chat and click on that URL, you will see the live notes.
It's incredibly cool. And before you came on the podcast today, I was doing a bit of research, and I read about your belief that it's essential to adopt speech and natural language processing AI technologies that can develop understanding of ever-changing physical and contextual environments and human-to-human interactions. And that really stood out for me. But can you expand on that belief for me?
English is actually very hard to transcribe. Because there's the variations are so tremendous. There's different ways to say each word. People have different accents based on where you came from. UK and American people pronounce many words differently. The tones can be different. The background noise can be different. With so much variation, it's actually very hard for computer algorithms to transcribe words accurately. Fundamentally, what the computer algorithm is trying to do is to take sound signals and try to decipher it, decode it, and figure out what you're trying to say. Human brain have been doing this for millions of years, so it's very natural for human brain to do that. But for computer brain to do it, it's there's a tremendous amount of challenges. So even just 5 or 6 years ago, when you talk to Siri or any computer speech recognition system, you must be very frustrated because you keep saying the same words over and over again, but the algorithm couldn't recognize you accurately. In the past few years, there were now a lot of breakthroughs that use deep learning and a tremendous of training data to train the system and get it much more accurate, although still not 100% accurate. So the context is important, because when you say 2 or 4, if you don't listen very carefully, or with my accent, it's hard to tell whether you are saying the word "to" or you're saying the number 2. The same for for the number 4 or 4. That's just one example. There are hundreds or thousands of other examples that English can be ambiguous unless you use the context to help you. What are the words before and after the words you hear. And often, if you're talking to someone in a very noisy restaurant, you may only hear maybe 50% words accurately, but for some reason you can understand the other person, mainly because you know the general topics the other person is talking about. So your brain is trying to fill in the blank and connect the dots and understand most of the conversations. So in order for computer to accomplish that, we have to take into the context and understand what the topics people are discussing. Sometimes you miss a word, but later you hear some words that you think that resembles the previous word. So there's a lot of complicated algorithms going on. So if you look at the real-time transcript, you will see that it sometimes make a guess instantly, but later it may correct it when Otter hears more words.
For people that are listening to this podcast today and hearing about Otter.ai for the first time, could you walk them through what it is and how it works and how to get the most out of it? Because it is very simple to use, isn't it?
To make it simple to use is actually really challenging. Considering the complexity of the algorithm behind it. So we put in a lot of effort designing the graphical user interface on mobile devices and web user interface. On the surface, it looks really simple. You press a record button, and then it record a voice and transcribe the sentences. But in the background, it's actually doing very sophisticated things. First of all, the microphone needs to capture the sound signals, encoded, and send the encoded information to our server. Our server goes through a number of components. It goes through the front-end service, the back-end service, stored in a database, run the speech recognition algorithm, and which generate the words in text format, and then send it back to the device you used, and display that to you. So that whole pipeline actually only takes less than 1 second to happen, which is takes a lot of effort to achieve. Also, if you have remote participants, in this case, we have at least 3 people here. The text generated by the server is actually sent to multiple people distributed around the world. So, and also, as I mentioned, it constantly reevaluates the text based on the context. So, not just does the algorithm process the current audio, it's also actually comparing the result with a past result and try to recalculate the probability of each word. Of course, after you record it, you share with 3 other colleagues. We need to make sure they get access, make sure they can search for information. They can play back the recording, sometimes at double speed, or they just scroll the text and look for the part they're interested in, and they're probably not going to listen to everything, but they can choose where to listen, where to skip, so that they can get information much faster. For a 1-hour meeting, and when you share with a colleague who didn't attend the meeting, maybe they only need to spend 5 minutes to get all the information they need.
Incredibly cool. And as I said earlier, I am a paid subscriber, and I do find it incredibly valuable for myself for pulling quotes out of podcast interviews. So I can either hook it up to my Zoom and get the live view that way, or upload the file and chop and change and get that information that I need for an article. But from a selfish point of view, I've already pointed out that I'd love to see more paragraphs added to make the text more easier to read. But I'm curious, what kind of improvement requests are you receiving? And are there any updates or any information you can share around improvements that you're working on that you can share with us today? I appreciate you probably can't share too much, but I'm interested in what's happening there.
Yeah, there's obviously, because we have millions of users, there are a lot of people who use it on a daily basis. We do get tons of user feedback. There are all kinds of feedback. Some of the feedback is about the user interface design, some feedback about generating automatic summarization, because a lot of people are suffering from Zoom fatigue these days because they have too many Zoom meetings. So they want to skip some meeting, but after they skip a meeting, how do they get the information really fast? So how to automatically detect important information for the user to consume. It's a very, very hard problem because it's actually a subjective process. After a meeting, if you ask 3 people to summarize the meeting, they will probably give you 3 different versions. For any subjective task, it's actually really hard for a computer to do. Computer is good for objective tasks that have one single correct answer. But if you cannot say you have one single correct answer, it's very hard for a computer to do. That's something we are working on to try to summarize. And of course, people always want to get more accurate transcript because although we're very accurate today, there are still errors that can happen.
And what excites you about the road ahead for Otter.ai, and how do you think AI will continue to improve and continue to evolve and improve the industry here?
As I said, we continue to work really hard to make Otter more intelligent, understand the conversations better, and perform more complicated tasks. Summarization is one of them. Recognize people's tasks they need to do and automatically connect that with other workflow tools. Create reminders for you based on the meeting conversation. Maybe create if you discuss that, hey, I'm going to send you that PowerPoint deck by Monday. Otter can hear it. And put that on your calendar, for example, and send you a reminder maybe a couple of days before the due date. So automate tasks would be important enhancement we'll work on. So in a few years, hopefully Otter become a productive personal assistant that can do a lot of your mundane work for you, and to save you some time and let you spend more time on the beach rather than in meetings.
I like the sound of that. And for business leaders that are listening, is there any advice you can offer around what you think are the best solutions that leaders should take into account especially when adapting their business to this new hybrid work model? Because it's almost crying out for a new set of tools now, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. With new tools, there will be new working mode. Again, a lot of people are suffering from Zoom fatigue, and a lot of people, their fear of missing out. So they felt compelled to attend and all the meetings are invited to. But with Otter, it's actually give people a choice to decide which meetings they do need to participate actively, but which meetings they may not need to. With Otter Notes, all they need is to review the Otter Notes afterwards. And also there's something in between. There's some meetings that are long. It could take 1 hour, 2 hours. They invite 10 people to attend 2-hour meeting. But, if you review the meeting content, probably not everybody needs to be participating actively all the time. So how do you use a tool like Otter to multitask, actually? You're invited to join the 2-hour meeting, but you may be only required to participate actively in 20 minutes, 30 minutes. The other times you can just passively listen, or only look at the transcript once in a while. Or the Otter can, if you tell Otter, okay, notify me whenever people discuss marketing related topics, or whenever my name is called. So you tell Otter to do it, then okay, maybe you can use that time to answer emails, reply Slack messages, and you're confident that you won't be missing anything because your Otter assistant is listening carefully. And whenever there's important topics for you, it sends you a notification. And then you take a look at the Otter transcript and see, hey, what did people just discuss? What's the question that was asked for me to answer? So with the new AI tools, there's new way to work that can be more productive and less exhausting.
Absolutely love that. And we started today's conversation talking about your origin story and the story behind Otter.ai. But a question I always like to ask my guests before I let them go is, what was the soundtrack to that story? Is there a song or piece of music that has inspired them in their past, helped you in your career, or just helps you get your head in the zone before going on stage or landing a big meeting? Is there a song that's important to you?
Yeah, there's many songs I like. One song I like particularly it's called I Lived by One Republic. The reason I like it, if you look at the lyrics, it talk about, hope when you take that jump, you don't fear the fall. I feel the relationship between that song and me, because when you do a startup, you feel like you're jumping off a cliff. I quit Google in 2010 to start my first startup. I had no salary, I had no funding for a whole year, and I had 2 young kids. I have a house to pay mortgage for. So I feel like, I'm jumping off the cliff. I don't know, I'm going to get money. So my wife gave me 1 year deadline to work on the startup. Otherwise, I have to go back to Google, find another job. So, but sometimes you just have to take the risk. And then you talk about, when the water rises, you build a wall. When you build a startup, you cannot anticipate everything. You try to anticipate as much as you can, but things always happen unexpectedly. So you have to build a wall when the water rises. You have to fight the fire. And you talk about, hope that you fall in love, and it hurts so bad. When you do a startup, you have to love what you do, because it just everybody tells you it won't work. I talked to dozens of, if not hundreds of VCs. Most of them, say, hey, Sam, Google is doing this, Amazon is doing, Apple is doing this. How can you succeed? Or, hey, people will never record their meetings because, for a lot of reasons, their privacy, their concerns. People will tell you 100 reasons why you will fail. So if you don't love it, you can't work on it every day you don't know even if it will succeed or not. So this is why I like that song. It's it basically telling you, hey, you have to do what you love. You have to live your life. At the end of the day, even if you fail, can you say, I don't regret it? I choose what I want to do. Even if I fail, that's fine. That's life. I live my life.
What a great choice, and an even better story behind it. Really brought it to life. So I'll be adding that to our Spotify playlist to inspire other listeners, whatever stage they're at in their own tech career. But before I let you go, for anyone wanting to find out more information about Otter.ai, learn how it could benefit them, get up and running, and even contact a member of your team if they have any questions, what's the best starting point?
Well, the best way is to look at our website at Otter.ai. Just search for Otter.ai on Google. We have a Twitter account, Otter_AI. Of course, if you like to try the app, just go straight, sign up on Otter.ai website, or download it from Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
Excellent. Well, I'll have those links to the show notes so people can find you nice and easily. So much I've loved chatting with you about today, from adopting speech and natural language processing AI technologies that can develop understanding of ever-changing physical and contextual environments and those human-to-human interactions. That is the where the magic happens there. But more than anything, just hearing your stories there and you're behind your song choice and so much going on. But thank you so much for bringing that to life and sharing it with us all today. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you for being our customer, and thank you for your feedback.
So a huge thank you to Sam for walking us through what Otter.ai is, the story behind the company, and discussing the best solutions that leaders should take into account when adapting their businesses to a more hybrid work model. And if anyone wanted to check out Otter.ai, there is a free version too that should be enough to get you up and running and see if it's a good fit for you. So if you do that, please, I'd love to hear your experiences and how you get on. So email me as always, techblogwriter@outlook.com, tweet me at Neil C. Hughes, and my website is techblogwriter.co.uk if you would like to work with me. But that's it for another episode, so a big thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.